Welcome everyone to our final Tech Tutors East Africa episode. Thank you so much for joining us for today's session that will be led by Jacquiline Bubi, and it will be on how to get started with collecting mobile digital data to combat illegal wildlife trade. So Jacquiline Bubi is a senior wildlife crime analyst at the International Fund for Animal Welfare and was formerly an intelligence analyst at Kenya Wildlife Service. Over her career, she has trained in and used various applications in the capture, analysis, and presentation of wildlife-related data. Jacquiline offers training and mentorship to various partners and law enforcement officers in conservation and wildlife crime enforcers in East Africa. We're really happy to have you today, Jacquiline. You can start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Netty, for that introduction. Let me share my screen and we can begin. So this was a question, I think, Netty, when you reached out, you wanted various people to answer a bunch of tech questions. So this is what I'll be covering today. Mm-hmm. I have tried to make it a bit I think simple so that it can be an introductory session. So for my presentation, I'll actually just introduce what digital mobile forensics is actually, the legal considerations for seizing and searching mobile devices, the tools that are required from hardware to software, and what an examiner needs to consider when collecting digital evidence. The digital forensic process, this is quite extensive, so I've narrowed it down to make it a bit more palatable. And hopefully, maybe at the end of the session, we can go into Q&A. And then the challenges, because every tech any tech endeavor usually has its challenges, and I've mentioned a bit of some mitigation, and it's always a growing industry. So an introduction to what mobile digital forensics is. Mobile forensics, it is a branch of digital forensics, and it deals with the recovering and analysis of digital evidence from mobile devices using universally accepted methods. Like in essence, forensics, everyone knows the term forensics. It's used when it comes to the scientific methods which are used to acquire information or evidence linked to a crime. So this is not just gathering information just for the sake of gathering. This is the digital evidence collection from mobile units when you're trying to determine whether a crime has been committed or from a suspect or from any type of seizure situation. So this is maybe what we need to bear in mind when it comes to examining digital evidence, when it comes to combating illegal wildlife trade or trafficking, because as we all know, illegal wildlife trade is a form of organized crime, which is part of the overall sort of criminality that needs to be examined and also proved in a court of law. So when we say mobile devices, there are very many, and I know many people usually just narrow it down to mobile phones. So we have a lot of classifications. Yes, mobile phones are there. We have SIM cards which are used. Nowadays, there used to just be the normal mini SIM cards. Now we have in many sizes up to the micro SIM cards. And also now we have something called the embedded SIM card or eSIM. Most are high-end smartphones like Samsung, I think the latest model, and the latest, I think, from iPhone X going above, they do have eSIM enabled kind of devices where data is not now in a physical SIM card like shown in this particular picture, but it's actually embedded within the device itself. Other forms of mobile devices which we normally come across are micro USB, where some images, some information is usually stored, and other sort of mobile devices that not necessarily can be said are mobile phones, but evidence can also be captured using some of the software that is available in the market, from digital cameras to USB sticks. And now we have new technology when it comes to smartphones, when it comes to even drones that are usually now sometimes used to capture images, and criminals actually are using this to their advantage. So they have some embedded tools within them, and the software used can be used to extract the data. So what do we apply digital mobile forensics for? So it is used for intelligence gathering. This list is actually not quite exhaustive, but this is basically what mobile digital forensics is used for. Widely used in the intelligence community to gather intelligence. It's used in law enforcement to actually investigate organized crime. These are narcotics, drug trafficking, human trafficking, illegal wildlife trafficking is amongst that. It is widely in the military, in also investigative terrorism, in anti-terrorism investigation, corporate security, and e-discovery agencies. When we talk in corporate security, these are private sector firms such as banking, such as mobile companies and etc. when it comes to intellectual property rights and all these other things. So there is a wide range of how mobile digital forensics is used to investigate various forms of criminality, various forms of data breaches, various forms of any sort of malice or mens rea that is intended to actually be taking place within different forms of places. So here we are going to actually now be thinking about this, and also thinking about what illegal wildlife trafficking entails, from the source countries to even when we talk about the transit countries, to the source, to also the destination countries, the consumer countries themselves. It's a wide range of criminals that are involved. We can actually just rightfully say the organized criminal networks, they need to communicate, they need to exchange information. Now there's use of even mobile money. So that particular handset, especially smartphones, with the day and age of technology, it is very, very advanced. So people used to 5 years and previously ago, maybe even 10 years ago, such information used to be stored in PCs, in laptops and computers. Now, a small device can actually store as a lot of evidence and a lot of information that can equally be stored in a computer. So this is why digital mobile forensics is quite important. And the amount of evidence and amount of information gathered and also stored from each and every individual's handset is actually quite valuable when it comes to gathering evidence and proving some of this information in a court of law. And also just for intelligence gathering, when you do not have a clear-cut evidence plan, or you have not yet gotten any form of palatable evidence, this can actually be able to be used for intelligence. Later on, can be able to use to investigate criminality as we move forward. So there are legal considerations when it comes to gathering information. You need the legal authority when conducting any form of search and seizure of any form of property. So mobile devices, mobile phones, mobile anything, they are critical. They are critical in building a substantive case, and law enforcement officers should ask themselves the following questions before making any seizures. Do you have any authority to search the premises? Do you have the authority to seize mobile devices? Do you have, are you restricted in the information you can look at? This is actually quite important, especially because different states have different laws when it comes to digital and cyber evidence and all this. So this is actually quite general. I'm aware maybe there are different people from different jurisdictions. So all the different jurisdictions have their own set of laws and the legal considerations when it comes to intellectual property rights, when it comes to privacy issues. this needs to be considered because this is quite big, especially now in the EU when it has become such a big deal. You cannot just seize anyone's mobile phone for the sake of just getting evidence. So you need to ask yourself this. And I usually stress this particular part when I'm lecturing or when I'm talking to especially law enforcement officials. So you need to have also asked yourself if you have consulted for any legal advice. For any institution, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's also NGOs, whether it's also maybe supporting other institutions, you need to ask yourself, you need to have legal advice for you to actually get to see if you are permitted to get this information. Some information is quite sensitive. You're dealing with also, as I've said, different jurisdictions. And finally, do you have the proper software or the platforms that you're using? Do you have the relevant user licenses? Are you using bootleg kind of pirated software to actually do this? You may be actually in a legal institution. You have the authority to actually seize some of these devices and the software and extract it. But once you're extracting it, there are different software that are available in the market. Do you have the relevant user licenses? Because this can also be brought up in a court of law. Do you also have the authority and the proper training to actually be able to extract this information? So these are the basic facts. There are maybe a lot more that you need to consider when dealing with digital data. But this is just in a nutshell, the basic 5 questions you need to ask yourself before you even try and delve into dealing with digital evidence, because it can land you into a lot of trouble. So I'll now talk about the tools required and what, as an examiner, whether in case you're an examiner here may just mean if you're an investigator, if you're an intelligence analyst, or you're just a digital mobile examiner, probably. So these are the basic tools that are required and what you need to consider when you're collecting digital evidence. So when I've just said it's a search kit, you can just call it the basics that you need, probably in your small office, in your car, or in your bag. Number one thing, obviously, you need a computer with the appropriate software and licenses, updated software and licenses, so that you're able to actually do this formal mobile forensic examination. You need a video or a still camera and a tripod. Maybe a tripod may not be quite necessary, but you need a camera to take photos. Sometimes this, when gathering this kind of evidence, this is used hand in hand with when you call them crime scene investigators, maybe when you're just maybe examining someone, if it's someone who has been arrested, that's well and good. Maybe you can just take a photograph of all the evidence that has been collected. If it is in a property, you're able to actually take a photo, take maybe any form of number, any form of physical markings, and the amount of SIM cards that you have collected on the scene, and etc. You also need storage cards, SD cards. This can be external hard drives. It can be USB sticks and all these flash drives and all that, depending on what you have. And you need external batteries and cables. These come with actually where you get the software. They give you this external software. I mean, external cables to be able to connect to the different forms of mobile devices. And then you need evidence bags. This is primarily if this is for law enforcement, if this is a law enforcement kind of operation. And you need also, one of the biggest things you actually need are maybe when you call them shielding devices. These are aluminum foils, Faraday box or Faraday bags, Arson cans. I'll talk about this later. I'll show you what we mean by that. And evidence property forms, so that you're able to document everything from the point of extraction, or the point of when you gather this particular evidence, to when you're actually examining this. This will also have the integrity to actually show the chain of custody when we are talking about investigation best practices, so that when and in the eventuality now you get the evidence that you require, some of these the property forms are usually needed when you present some of this evidence before a court of law. The magistrate, the judge, or whoever it is will ask you, or will ask how you acquired this information, how you gather the evidence. Did you have the legal mandate to actually acquire this? That one goes to the previous slide that I actually said on the legal considerations. So all the best practices need to be followed, and you need to actually remember most of these things. This kit is not quite exhaustive. There are so many other things when it comes to now other basic forms where when it comes to having maybe gloves, that goes without saying, not to cause any contamination, but now that's now for maybe crime scene investigators and licensed people who do that. But this, I said, let me just narrow it down to at least the basic things that you may need when you come to gathering digital evidence. So when we come to computer software, what do we mean? Because gathering digital evidence is not just plugging in a phone with a cable inside in any form of computer. So there are various companies out there. Maybe some of you are familiar with some of them. The most widely used and most popular one is Celebrite. UFED. UFED just means Universal Forensic Extraction Device. This is maybe part of their registered trademark kind of devices. They have a lot of software that they use. Most forensic examiners, they have the extraction tools, the extraction software tools, and also the analytical tool. When you extract this evidence, you're able now to use another sort of software to actually examine this evidence to be able to get the bigger picture of what you're actually looking at when it comes to the phone book, when it comes to the call logs, when it comes to the emails or the web pages, the cookies, etc. We'll talk about that later. So I just named 4. There are numerous of them, but these 4 are actually the most, in my opinion, or maybe in my experience, the most widely used. And what I can actually say, these are not free tools. These are usually paid licenses, and annual subscription fees are usually paid. Celebrite, I think, is developed by the Israelis. Mobile Edit, Compelson is a company. It's developed from the Czech Republic. There's the M sub XRY, and they also have an analytical tool as well, I think, called Examine, XAMIN, and Oxygen Forensics. All of these tools, they have the extraction software tools and the examination software tools. Examination is not for analysis, for now getting the reports, for generating any sort of analytical when you say the analytical product, maybe bar graphs, maybe network analytical tools and all that. You can also extract most of this data. Can also be, the software is also capable of being compatible with, for example, MS Office tools such as Excel and any other, maybe IBM analyst notebook and all that, and other also GIS software tools, so that you're able to analyze this information using other software, not just from the service providers. So I talked about shielding when I said one of the tools or the things that you need when collecting digital data. This ensures actually mobile devices do not receive any sort of communication once seized. This is very, very important. So what these tools do is actually just to cut the signal, so that nowadays, especially when we all know smartphones, you can actually wipe these instruments or devices remotely. So this is very critical, and it ensures that evidence is not manipulated or destroyed. So this is just a photograph. This is a Faraday bag. Faraday bag is just a normal bag where you just insert the mobile phone or the tablet or anything that you have. It is lined with an aluminum foil. The same as this is an arson can. And whilst in the field, sometimes you may just improvise with just the normal aluminum sheets that we use in our kitchens. That actually also works quite well. So anything that can block the mobile signal is quite good. If you do not have this, there are other forms of shielding where you can actually put the device on airplane mode. Normally, when dealing with mobile devices, switching them off sometimes is not quite advisable. Maybe because if at all you may not have the unlock information data, sometimes you just need to keep it on so that you're able to actually maintain that and not be able to lose any form of access to it. But there are also those other kind of forms of shielding, but these are the most recommended ways of shielding signal to the mobile device. So there are certain phases to gathering digital evidence. So normally there are like 6 or 7, but I have narrowed it down to actually 4. So there are 4 systematic phases: identification and seizure. That one I think I've covered in the previous slides where you identify, but I'll talk about how you really identify when it comes to in mobile phone terminology, and then how you acquire this information. Acquisition simply means the extraction, using now the software tools, either from Celebrite, from Mobile Edit, from Oxygen Forensics, depending on what your organization has, maybe what a mobile digital forensic expert has recommended, and the level of capability that the examiner actually has when it comes to seizing this information. And also the most important thing is the analysis of this information. What do you normally analyze? What to normally focus on? Because we've mentioned mobile phones are small computers. It's a lot and a lot of evidence. And sometimes maybe we are time bound. We need to actually analyze this information as quick as possible so that you're able to either seize someone or get more evidence or get more intelligence if it is something that is time bound. And also how to report, reporting this information in whichever way, either maybe to the public or maybe to, if it's a confidential or confidential report, if it is to any other law enforcement agencies, depending on the formats. There are many formats that you're able to report this information as. So how you identify identification and seizure. So you need to identify the make and the model and the technology used by the mobile device. So there are 2 distinct technologies used by mobile phone networks. This is for phone networks. So there's phone network and the mobile device. Mobile devices usually use different operating systems, which I'll talk about shortly. So these are 2 distinct technologies used for mobile phone networks. This one especially is very useful because we identified one of the mobile devices, or one of the mobile things that are usually extracted are SIM cards. So there are 2 technologies used worldwide. The GSM, which is, I think, used in maybe 90–95% world over. And then the CDMA, the Code Division Multiple Access technology. This one is usually probably mostly in North America. I've only seen CDMA kind of phones probably used in the US, unless maybe there are other jurisdictions that have that. So what does GSM mean? So this is a global standard, and it has different key identifiers. These are very crucial when it comes to examining mobile evidence or mobile data. So there's a subscriber identity module. All these things, I'm sure you're very familiar with them because they're all acronyms. So this is actually what SIM means, subscriber identity module. So it stores subscriber data and the information within and embedded within the SIM card. There is also the IMSI, so the IMSI. So this is the International Mobile Subscriber Identity. It is also recorded inside in the SIM card, and it is used to connect to the subscriber. And there is the MSI SDN, the Mobile Station International Subscriber Dialing Number. There's a telephone number that is just a long acronym to actually just say this is someone's telephone number. And then there is also the IMEI. This one is also what identify the actual device equipment. And usually to get the IMEI number, you usually just dial *#06 in almost all mobile devices. And there are also online web applications and free tools which can be able to, you can be able to go online and search for some of these. If you have the MSISDN number, the mobile number, you can able to even identify the network. There may be the subscriber details, which service provider someone uses with that particular SIM card. And the CDMA, this does not require a SIM card. And subscriber information is stored actually within the handset. This is to actually happen often with, I think in North America, AT&T, where you subscribe to some of these network providers. But nowadays, 4G devices and above, they all need a SIM card for data, so that you're able to access 4G data. Now there's also 5G. So the key identifiers, these are, now you see they are different, the acronyms are different from the GSM-enabled handsets. So there's MEID. So when you see that, you just know it's a CDMA kind of phone. So it's a 15-digit number that just, it's the serial number of the handset actually. And then there's a ESN number. It's an 11-digit decimal code. It's electrical also, it's a serial number. There's a mobile ID number that also identifies the subscriber to the network provider. If it's AT&T, if it's T-Mobile, etc., you're able to actually know that. And then the MDN. So this is a mobile directory number, the number assigned to that CDMA device. The CDMA device simply means the phone. So also, you can also get the MEID number. MEID number is actually the sister to IMEI number. So the same *#06#, you can also get that. And you can get that. That is numberingplans.com is widely used. You can just easily Google other forms of freely available online tools to actually get to research some to identify any phone that has this particular type of technology. There are also other web resources online to identify the make, the model number of a device without physically removing the battery to access the information. So nowadays, phones are manufactured like on every day there's a new handset. It is very hard to keep up with what is going on. So some of the service providers like Celebrite, you can go to mycelebrite.com. You can use to download some free tools like Phone Detective. You fed Phone Detective. You can identify the smartphone. Why this is very, very crucial. Identifying the type of smartphone is very crucial when it comes to the second step, when it comes to the extraction, because the different cables are needed, different forms of extraction methods are also needed, and tools are needed to extract this the information. So getting to know if it's a GSM phone, if it's a CDMA phone, that is step number one. If what kind of phone is it? Is it a Samsung? Is it an iPhone? Is it, I don't know, a Chinese chipset kind of phone, so that you're able to identify. There's so many things out there, and I always tell everyone the internet is your go-to, because in my experience, I also come across so many phones that I am not familiar with. I just Google it, or I just dial *06# to get the IMEI number. Once you get the IMEI number, you can Google that. You can use numberingplans.com, and then you can identify what sort of then the make and the model of that particular handset. So additional evidence that is usually within a phone, I think I talked about this, but there's also cloud storage. People store things in their Dropboxes, in their iCloud, in OneDrive, etc., their peripherals, their cables, their chargers. This is also quite important once you're actually collecting the evidence, because you may get a cable and not a handset. But if you find probably a cable that belongs to an iPhone, for example, and you just maybe collected SIM cards, you may maybe assume that someone in that particular either maybe house or bag or whatever uses a particular sort of phone. Then you're able to actually drive, maybe gather more intelligence on that, and it can drive your investigations to in a better direction. User manuals, additional SIM cards, and I also talked about new technology, smartwatches, fitness bands, for example. They also have data, especially GPS data, and connected home technology. We now are in the age of Internet of Things, where our phones are connected to to our kitchen gadgets, to our TVs, to everything. So you're able to actually know and perhaps even get more information on that. Virtual reality devices, drones, gaming consoles, etc. etc. The list is endless depending on what you're examining. So the second step in the forensic examination or the forensic process is the extraction of this particular information. So we extract using the software that the different available software that I've mentioned. If you're using Celebrite, if you're using Mobile Edit and the rest, they're all sort of, the principle is the same. So there are three forms of extracting mobile evidence or mobile data. There's logical extraction, there's file system extraction, and there's physical extraction. This is just a terminology used by mobile examiners, and I'll be able to describe what the first sort of extraction is. So that's a definition. This option, it will allow an investigator to extract the call logs, the contacts, the SMS, text messages, the pictures, audio, calendar, just whatever that is on the phone, the IM messages, the ringtones from the mobile phone in question. Note, some of these options are not offered for every phone. So basically the data you're able to see on the phone is what will be acquired. So any phone, like let's say a logical extraction is what you're seeing on the phone, like in your phone with your eyes, that is exactly what you're going to extract using this form of extraction. And this form of extraction, it's the fastest actually. And depending on your situation, this is not usually the most ideal form of extraction, but you can still get evidence on that, depending on also the software that you're using and the capability of your software. So there's a file system extraction. This is also over and above getting the information that you've gotten from the logical extraction, like the phone system, not the phone system, the call logs, the pictures, the calendars, the physical evidence, which is there, what you can actually see. You can actually now also get more information that are included in some unallocated spaces, and also, but it will not include maybe the deleted files. So it will allow an investigator to gain access and recover the hidden databases in the background. So a file system extraction will make you see what sort of databases are being used within that particular handset, so that you're able to examine it further, especially when you're doing the analysis. This is also quite ideal and will give you additional information over and above a logical form of extraction. And then the physical extraction, this option will allow yourselves, the investigator, to create a physical image, literally, of the mobile device, the flash memory allowing an investigator to bypass the iPhone's operating system. I'll talk later about that in the next slide. It also includes an allocated space where you will be able to find deleted content, such as deleted SMS messages, contacts, call logs, images, etc. Any form of deleted messages and information will be able to be extracted using a physical type of extraction. This is the most comprehensive form of extraction, and it is a mostly, this is a more widely recommended form of extraction, because you literally just take the whole image of that handset, from when that handset was manufactured to even the number of users that they have used, and to the current age, to the current day and age, as well as any deleted information that was in that particular device. Depending on how much the data is, this definitely takes the longest. And I'll circle back to the software that is usually used. The software used usually is very user-friendly, and it's very intuitive. And all these options are usually laid down during the extraction process. So you're able to actually say, do you want a logical extraction? Do you want a file system extraction? Do you want a physical extraction? Knowing the differences and the capabilities and what information can be obtained, you actually now, as an examiner, you're able to now choose and differentiate what sort of extraction you may need, depending on your needs. Probably you only need the phone book, so you just do a logical extraction, and it'll take you 2 minutes or maybe 5 minutes, depending. And if you want the whole shebang, you do a physical extraction, so that you're able to meticulously now pour through each and every form of data within that particular handset. So we have different forms of operating systems, but these are the two mostly widely used. Android, I think, is used by, I think, probably the biggest market share by most of these handsets. And Android operating system is actually it's an open source operating system. Open source meaning that it is open. Many developers usually contribute to the development of this, and maybe hence the why it is usually quite wide. It's widely used, and when it comes to extracting information, it has been seen to actually have a lot of vulnerabilities because it is not as a closed OS as Apple. So maybe when it comes to the security considerations, Android devices usually are easier to bypass some of the security measures as compared to Apple or iOS's. But that I'm saying with caution, because the software that some of these vendors they claim to have, especially maybe I've seen Celebrite and Mobile Edit, they say sometimes they can bypass up to as of Apple iOS. So this is something to keep in mind. So when extracting evidence from mobile devices, I'm dealing with I'll focus on Android and iOS. Both are normally kind of like the same process. When you hook up with a different kind of cable within from the handset to the extraction PC or machine. But one thing that is unique when it comes to Android devices, they need to be, when you call it, you need to turn on the USB debugging tool or capability. This just basically means you need to turn the Android device into developer mode. This is the location of this USB debugging. It's in almost all Android devices. Location is different depending on the different manufacturers. Where it's located in a Samsung phone, it is different from where it is in an LG. But this can easily Google this. There are so many online software tutorials. If you're not sure, you can just say, where do I turn on the USB debugging for example, an Oppo phone? Like now, all these Oppo phones that are coming up, or I don't know, a Techno or these other devices that we really are not familiar with, it'll just show you where exactly you go up in the settings. Mostly they're in the settings, you turn it on so that you're able to actually now do the extraction. For Apple devices, for as long as the phone is unlocked, it just has a pop-up screen if you should trust the PC or not, just like the way you would just do for your own personal mobile device. So you just say you can trust that PC and then you're good to go. So this is the only part that that is a bit tricky when it comes to extracting Android phones, and I thought I'd mention it. So we come to now analyzing digital data. So analyzing digital data that you can get from mobile devices is actually quite huge. So normally, before you get overwhelmed or bogged down when it comes to the analysis, the big three is usually these three that I've actually spelled out here. There's usually the address book, if it's a mobile phone, or if it's from a SIM card. You want to know who has been saved within that particular phone book. So you get all that information, and then the call history, who has this person been calling, at what frequency, who, and the text messages. Now we have also instant messages from also online sources, WhatsApp and all that. That also falls in this category, and also the SIM-enabled text messages, who has been texting this person. These three are available in all sorts of phones. And when it comes to feature phones, when it comes to smartphones, feature phones, that's just terminology or just the lingo for these banner phones, the kind of phones, the basic phones that we used to have before the adage of smartphones. And normally we find that they're mostly widely used also by a lot of criminals, maybe because they're they're said that to be more secure when it comes to location services and all that. So, but you can be able to actually get these three. When it comes to now get if it's a smartphone, the data is limitless. You have images. Images, you can get a metadata from some of these images where the geolocations have been embedded. So they are geotagged. So you can get location information, all the installed applications that are within the smartphone, the saved documents. Like I said, a smartphone is a computer. So whatever you can get within a computer, you can get within that smartphone, depending if the subject matter or the suspect, how they were using this phone. They might also be having their banking history there. Any form of information, all this can be extracted using the software that we have seen, and they give you investigative opportunities. So the big three is the basic. You can get this from the SIM cards, you can get that from the dumb phones and the smartphones. And then what I've put in asterisks, this is not even remotely exhaustive, but you can imagine you can just get all this information, analyze it using various software. You can use now the same software tool, they have analytical capabilities where you're able to see how many people have been stored within the address book, for example. How many people have been called within the past 30 days? You can actually be able, some of these analytical software tools, you can be able to even get a timeline on the frequency of this person who's been calling, the time of the day or night. So when you're analyzing, you're actually able to ask yourself many questions as an investigator. The person who was immediately called before maybe the phone was seized, or the person who's been called the most, or if the phone has been in possession with that particular one person, if there's only one random phone call, maybe to a foreign country, just once. So you're able to see that using different software tools, and then you're able to now get a bigger picture, get to see the images. If there are any form of images that were collected, maybe someone took a photo of some product, let's say ivory or a live animal, maybe they're selling them. Maybe they have also, they've subscribed to online market tool places. You're able to also use open source intelligence gathering skills to now be able to further analyze and get more information about the subject matter. And you're able to also see a bigger picture because on the network of this particular person, because you're able to now see other people of interest, other phones, other maybe telephone numbers that are frequently called by this particular person. And then this is how you end up now getting the bigger picture, analyzing and seeing who is within that particular network. And then finally, when it comes to reporting, there are different reporting formats. And I will not maybe delve into maybe different products when it comes to intelligence reports. Maybe this is also like another form of maybe training, but in essence, you can have very different formats, and the format, the analytical report, it needs to follow the stipulated. Different organizations have their own standard operating procedures when it comes to the format. When it comes to intelligence reports, when it comes to even like a report, is it a press release? But most of the software, you can actually extract the same reporting. You can pick and choose what you need to report. If you only need to report text messages, for example, between a certain date, the software is very versatile. You can be able to pick and choose and pick a certain date, a certain time, and report it using all these different formats, Excel workbook. UFDR is actually, this is for the UFED, this is for Celebrite tools that now other software tools such as IBM Analyst Notebook are able to use some of these UFD files to actually continue in your analytical process. PDF, HTML files, Excel, Word documents, and all that. So you're able to report this and be able to present this to either your client, your consumer, or any law enforcement agent for them to get action or for their information. And then finally, I wanted to talk about challenges. Digital evidence, it's quite challenging. So one of the things I've been talking about is SIM extraction. So if a SIM is PIN protected, it's quite challenging to actually obtain this information. There are, even up to today, I'm not seeing any bypassing software tools that are able to do this. One thing is, I think we all know, once you input a wrong PIN number, like I think 3 times in a SIM card, you're not able, it's actually locked. So you're supposed to actually get the PUK from the service provider. At least the PUK is something that cannot be manipulated by the user. So if you have the legal mandate, or maybe the authority, or you can have access to this PUK, you can actually now access this. PUK is, I think you can now completely lock a SIM card if you enter the wrong PUK 10 times. So as an examiner, I don't think you have any excuse if you have the PUK not to actually obtain, to gain access to a SIM card. And Bluetooth extraction sometimes can be quite challenging. This some devices, maybe the port, the physical port has been damaged. So, or you don't have the cable. So sometimes challenging, it's very, very challenging when it comes to extracting. The software does have this option to extract using Bluetooth, but sometimes when it comes to the protocols, there's usually some technical issues, and bypassing that is usually quite tricky. So that's why that is one of the challenges of extracting that. And locked devices, I mentioned most of the software, they do have a password bypassing protocols, and we do this, the software available can bypass some devices, Android and also iOS. And in the event that this cannot be done, this can be unlocked by the vendors. Some of these vendors, like Celebrate, like Mobile Edit, you can physically send the phone to them. They usually now have, I think, services that they can provide for you to actually unlock this particular phone so that you're able to examine them. Another thing I may have forgotten, the never-ending manufacture of Chinese-based chipset phones. This to keep track of this, the vendors, when I talk about the vendors, are, for example, the 4 software providers that I mentioned and others, because these these companies need to physically have the phone so that they can reverse engineer some of the software tools so that they can be able to now develop the extraction software capabilities and the analytical tools. So when different phones are there, maybe the operating systems themselves are not familiar to the vendors. This has been quite a big challenge to bypass, and it's always a never-ending catch-up process. I think with that, I come to the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for the interesting conversation and presentation. So we'll just jump straight into some of the questions that have been asked during the session and also during registration. One question is, mobile devices could be fully encrypted, both Android and iOS. As far as I know, there's no way you could retrieve data from those encrypted devices. Is that right?
Yes, sorry, I muted. Yes, like I said, yes, they do have the encryption. There are some decryption software available, and some of these vendors, they do have the capability of decrypting some. And in the event that the phone is fully encrypted, there are engineers within these particular organizations that you can send the physical device to, and they can attempt to actually decrypt it so that they can bypass that. But yes, it is usually quite challenging, and it is by case basis. So there's some devices where you literally maybe cannot maybe bypass, but there's always a way, depending on how advanced the software skills the person or the mobile digital examiner is using.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There's also another question about the software. So does the physical or logical software capture bypass cell phone lock?
Yes, it does. When you're doing a physical extraction, the software, when you say the software, maybe I'm imagining it's extraction software. And when you talk about the physical, it's the type of extraction that you're choosing so that you're able to get the maximum number of information, like the deleted files and all that. So it doesn't matter if you're doing a physical, logical, or a file system kind of extraction. You can bypass the cell phone lock. There are usually now some steps, especially if you're dealing with an Android device, there's usually that, and also an iOS device. You can bypass that so that you're able to access the particular handset.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. So there's a question that came in during registration. You mentioned something about GIS, and they were asking how can this data be integrated with spatial data to see the relationship that exists?
Okay, that's a very good question. So it depends. Because you never know what sort of data you're going to get once you've extracted any mobile phone. So if the particular person, maybe the user, let's call them the user, had enabled location services, for example, within that particular mobile device, you can be able to get the coordinates and maybe extract them and maybe through Excel or something, and then you can transfer them maybe to other GIS kind of software to be able to map out different locations, and you can use different layers for you to get the maps and see where was this person going. You can use Google Maps, for example, to actually see was this a shop? Was this person has been here for so many times. You can be able to even see where the person has been frequenting most of the time. So, like for example, and also photo geotags. Some people enable geotagging within their photos. So when you're examining this data, you can actually get the metadata. The metadata, once you see there's a coordinate, that's a good thing. Then you're able to superimpose that particular image to a location, and probably it's a warehouse. I've had the experience of actually getting an image and I wasn't really sure what it was. But it was geotagged, and lo and behold, it was a warehouse at some place. So this is how you can use different form of technologies depending on the data that you get. This is mostly from smartphones and also from a drone if you actually are ever lucky enough to obtain or seize a drone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's also another question on how easy is it to find open source data sets on illegal wildlife trade?
Well, perhaps I think it depends. I don't think it is quite easy because it depends on what sort of form of data. Maybe when it comes to arrest data and all that, I think some countries or some law enforcement institutions usually publish some of this information or mortality data, for example. But when it comes to, I think, digital evidence, I have not seen that published online. Maybe I've seen a report of it being published because they obtain digital evidence. But the evidence itself, because remember I talked about the legal ramifications on privacy issues and all that, some of these things cannot be published by maybe a law enforcement agency because of some of these issues. But there have been reports, definitely, that because of getting digital data, we were able to maybe map out the warehouse, we're able to map out the I don't know, where this person goes, or even the images that have been, that was stored within that data, and the people they have been texting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. One last question before we close, because I'm aware we are almost at the hour. So there was an interesting question on how best can you engage the internet sectors in combating illegal wildlife trade in Africa?
Come again, sorry.
Sorry, how best can you engage the internet sectors in combating illegal wildlife trade in Africa?
Okay. What do they mean exactly by the internet sectors? Maybe do they mean the online resources, for example, the applications like the Facebooks and the online marketplaces like Jumia and all that? Okay, yes. That's okay. If it's that, then there's also when we talk about digital data, you've seen you can get all sorts of information. You can get also application usernames from Facebook. You can get usernames from maybe Amazon accounts, eBay or Jumia, whatever it is. And if the person is advertising, for example, using some online platforms, what normally and what also IFAW has done is petition some of these tech institutions. You maybe have the evidence, maybe you take a screenshot or maybe a URL, you say your platform is being used to actually advertise some of this product, and we know this is illegal. Most of the times they usually oblige, and they're usually quite understanding. And we've partnered with some of them who now are in the forefront in cracking down and investigating further, and now using their online filter tools to filter some of these adverts down. So this can be used, and this has been used actually in the past, and it continues being used. There's still some weaknesses, but now it goes to the how vigilant now investigators are. Like open source investigation, you need to be doing that every other time, because there are new ways of actually advertising some of these platforms. Using Telegram, for example, this is actually quite used a lot. So it's quite possible. And yeah, that's being done not only in Africa, but also the world over.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you so much, Jackie. So we'll close here. Thank you for the great presentation and the session, and thank you everyone for joining us for this session. The recording will be shared in a few days, and you'll be able to access it on WILDLABS or in our YouTube channel early next week. It's been a pleasure hosting Tech Tutors, and after 10 episodes, I hope you've discovered and learned something new on conservation technology. Thank you once again. Have a lovely rest of your day and week.